Jason La Canfora of CBS Sports, CBS NFL Insider. Everybody thinks it's a done deal, Kyler Murray to the Cardinals. Do you agree with that, Jason?
I think he's going to be the first overall pick. I'm not going to say that I absolutely positively know that they will make that pick. You know, I still think that a trade is always a possibility. But no doubt Kyler Murray is the story of this combine, and all he did is stand there and get measured. And it's crazy. I mean, someone asked me earlier today, like, you know, what's the story of this combine? What's different from this combine about others you've covered? I'm like, I never can recall the potential first overall pick being a kid who scouts basically didn't even talk to in, you know, October as they went through his school, because he wasn't viewed as a draftable commodity. Because by the time we're at the combine, he's going to be in, like, Peoria, Arizona or whatever. You know what I mean? With the A's minor leaguers getting ready to play in the California State League. Like, this is a new one, but it's happening.
Well, I mean, we're watching him while you were going through your first statement there, Jason, watching video, and I'll describe to the radio audience, of him running around to avoid the rush and then making spectacular plays with his legs. And we all know he can make some incredible throws as well. But you hit on something there, the evaluation of Kyler Murray. I mean, what did you hear about the evaluation of him at the Combine? Not the eye in the sky stuff, the stuff when they could look at him in the eye and talk about it with him, or anything else going down, any testing that he did in fact undergo, because as you point out, scouts didn't even take a look at him. They were assuming he was going to baseball. They assumed at 5'9" or whatever he was that they weren't going to take him anyway, and then his tape has made everybody feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he obviously started meeting with teams and interviewing with teams. I didn't hear anything drastic one way or the other. You know, as teams put him on the board, they're going to have to be and we're saying all this, but, like, the reality is he's probably going to one team, right? And they already know he does exactly everything they need him to know. And, like, so I almost feel like I'm wasting my breath here, because but teams still have to do all their evaluations. So, yes, he'll have a pro day, and yes, he'll make personal visits, and people will put him on the board, and there'll be varying degrees of comfort about if he could do what we need him to do, and how much would we have to do to meet him with what he can do, and how does our protection shape up, and is he going to have the kind of time and space that he got in Oklahoma, where at times their line was men against boys? So there's all these different mental calculations that go into it, but at the end of the day, like, I think we all know what Cliff Kingsbury probably thinks of him, right? So
is it his call? Is it his call, Jason? I mean, that's the interesting aspect of this too. Is you've got an organization that just one and done their coach, a general manager who had off the, I guess, outside of the building issues, and an owner that is no doubt antsy to get some sort of buzz going on with the franchise, despite Josh Rosen can't really evaluate how good he is based on, let me get this right, 52 sacks allowed last year by an offensive line. So what about the intrigue with Arizona here playing into all this?
Well, at this point, you would have to believe that Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury are joined at the hip with this. I mean, you can't tell me that as they're talking to Cliff Kingsbury and through that interview process and you know, going out with the owner and, you know, having 5-hour dinners and all that, that the prospect of this didn't come up. So if this is what they end up doing, taking, you know, a baby quarterback first overall to replace the baby quarterback they just took 10th overall, not even 11 months ago, you would have to assume that was part of a master plan and part of the reason why when you have the first overall pick, you know you can control the draft. And if this guy this coach thinks enough about Kyler Murray and what he can do to help this system translate in the pro game, then you would have to assume that the genesis and origins of that came then. But to your larger point about what's going on in that organization, for anybody to try to judge Josh Rosen on what he was thrust into, where the dude who picked him is getting an extreme DUI and literally is, like, in jail and then suspended while you're getting your feet wet. And Rosen's not the one who gave, $25-odd million guaranteed to Glennon and Bradford. And he's not the one who put together that Frankenstein staff and fired, Mike McCoy like 6 weeks into the season, right? And he's not the one who then parted with that staff that the Cardinals pretty much put together, because it's not like Steve Wilkes came in there with a ton of his own ideas and like a group of 15 guys, who are coming with me. It's not like he was putting a band back together like Gibbs 2.0 or Gruden 2.0 now in Oakland. And then the quarterback has to play before he's ready, and then you don't know how to use the running back anymore, and he's got nobody to throw to other than Larry Fitzgerald, and the offensive line is getting eaten alive. Like, I think if they do what everybody thinks they're going to do now, is take this other quarterback first overall, it begs the question, why did you do what you did last year? Like, what the bleep was that? Was it a move of any conviction whatsoever, or was it just that, like, three of these quarterbacks are going to go in the top 7 or 8, and then we got to get to 10 because Oakland's open for business to get whichever one of those 4, whichever one isn't one of the first 3 and also isn't Lamar Jackson. Like, is that what that was? Because if that's not what that was, then it would be really easy to put the Kyler Murray stuff to bed right now and just go ahead and trade off that pick or whatever and start throwing your arms around Josh Rosen.
Man, I mean, does Murray have it to handle it?
I'm wrong, but
No.
I believe those were all statements of fact.
So but you put the Jason La Canfora here on the Rich Eisen show, then you put every egg in the Kyler Murray basket, and you're hoping that he is the next sliced bread guy, because that the tape that we saw in Oklahoma emerges in the NFL.
And you're also selling incredibly low again on a kid you just moved up to take first overall. And don't try to, that wasn't a Steve Wilkes move. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to tell me like the offensive coordinator who you fired 20 quarters into the season, he was, no. I mean, that was an organizational move. I mean, that's Bidwell and Steve Keim. There's no other way to put it.
So then I guess in a way they're lucky that Kyler Murray comes in, and if he is that special, he could change this whole thing around really quick, or they just, I've never seen the number of people that just swear this is absolutely going to happen coming out of the combine, that the next few weeks just do not matter. And
just to be clear, I'm not saying that, but I hear plenty of people who are, and coaches and executives with other teams are utterly convinced of it. And if that's the case and it works, who cares?
Of course.
And if that's not the case, and they help fan the flames of Kyler Murray to the point where 2 or 3 other teams feel like they got to go to 1 to get a quarterback, then good for them. And they turn it into a Boffo trade to fill the 9,000 holes in their Swiss cheese roster. But if it's not either of the two, take it in conjunction with everything that's kind of going on there since the demise of the Bruce Arians era. And even before that, I mean, paying Carson Palmer when they didn't have to, probably waiting a year too long to make the move for the quarterback again, unless they trade out of, 1 and build around Josh Rosen. You look at all that in its totality and you say, there's a reason some teams win in this league and a reason some don't.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.